Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Tianlu. Coming up in this edition. US President Donald Trump is on a three-nation visit to the Middle East, the first major overseas tour of his second term. Reports indicate that Israel targeted Hamas leader Mohammad Sinwar in a strike. And China and Colombia signed a cooperation plan on the Belt and Road Initiative following a meeting between President Xi Jinping and President Gustavo Petro in Beijing. We begin with the Middle East. US President Donald Trump is on a three-nation visit to the Middle East, the first major overseas tour of his second term. He received a royal welcome in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. Riyadh and Washington have announced hundreds of billions of US dollars in investment. Trump also announced he will remove US sanctions against Syria. Adola Marouki has more from Riyadh.
On the first stop of President Trump's Middle East tour here in Saudi Arabia, hundreds of billions of dollars have been pledged by Saudi Arabia of investments into the United States. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, vowed to not only meet an earlier pledge, but to push it up further within the next 4 years.
Today, we hope for investment opportunities worth $600 billion, including deals worth $300 billion that were signed during this forum. We will work in the coming months on the second phase to complete deals and raise it to $1 trillion.
The U.S.-Saudi relationship has been a bedrock of security and prosperity. Today we reaffirm this important bond and we take the next steps to make our relationship closer, stronger, and more powerful than ever before.
This comes as the two countries expand their strategic economic partnership to include sectors like space, energy, trade, health, as well as many other sectors, including an MOU signed between the two countries in the defense field, where the United States has vowed to support and expand Saudi Arabia's military capacities with a $145 billion US deal signed in that regard. During the past 2 days, the boost in US and Saudi economic cooperation has been quite significant, but also on the political stage, the United States has provided a lot of what Saudi Arabia has been demanding, including lifting all the sanctions on Syria and supporting the Sunni-led government backed by Saudi Arabia and Turkey to give a chance for this government to prosper, according to President Donald Trump. Trump also vowed to stand against Iran's aspirations to acquire nuclear arms, saying he will stand against that, which is a reformation and a comfort to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to one of the most concerning issues it has here in the Middle East. At the same time, President Trump said that he desires to see Saudi Arabia joins the Abraham Accords, which normalizes ties between Israel and Arab nations. But he said he will give Saudi Arabia all the time it needs to take this step when it sees fit and let it make the decision on its own pace.
That was Adola Marouki reporting. Reports indicate that Israel targeted Hamas leader Mohammad Sinwar in a strike on a hospital in Gaza. It came months after the death of his brother Yahya Sinwar. The Gaza Health Ministry says an Israeli airstrike killed Palestinian journalist Hassan Asli, who was recovering from an injury at a hospital. Israel has accused Asli of links to Hamas and having a role in the attack on October 2023. Rami Al-Magari has more from Gaza.
Actually, what we can know, I can tell you about this, is that this is the second time that the Israeli army targets a particular journalist called Hassan Asli, who is a very famous and well-known journalist here in Gaza. The second time claimed the life of this Palestinian journalist who is very well known here in the community. And along with the killing of Asli, there was another person killed by that same strike at the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. He is a commander within the Interior Ministry that belongs to Hamas, a police commander. And the Israeli army statement suggested that the Israeli army attacked a control and command center for Hamas right at the Nasser Hospital, something that has been refuted by the local authorities, including Hamas. And also, let us here note that the Palestinian journalist community here in the Gaza Strip, along with other journalist groups worldwide, condemned the Israeli killing of Slayh as a flagrant violation of the press freedoms in the territory, which comes on top of more than 200 Palestinian journalists killed during the past period of the conflict.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting. Moving to Europe, Russia and Ukraine are set to hold crucial negotiations in Istanbul on Thursday. The meeting could pave the way for peace talks if it goes ahead. A Kremlin spokesperson says Russia is preparing for talks with Ukraine, adding that it will announce the members of the Russian delegation at an appropriate time. Mihal Bardvet has more from Istanbul.
The idea of holding direct peace talks in Istanbul on May 15th was originally proposed by Russian President Vladimir Putin. He did not confirm whether he would attend personally. On Sunday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accepted the proposal and said he would travel to Istanbul, making clear he expected a one-on-one meeting with Putin himself. That public stance has now put pressure on Moscow to respond. European powers have also ramped up pressure, demanding Russia implement a 30-day ceasefire or face new sanctions. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump, now on a Gulf tour in Saudi Arabia, told reporters he was considering joining the Istanbul talks. Good things can come out of that meeting, Trump said, emphasizing the potential for progress. Turkish officials say they've held phone calls with both Russian and Ukrainian counterparts and that Ankara is ready to host the talks, though no further details have been released. Turkey has maintained positive ties with both Kiev and Moscow throughout the conflict, making it a credible host for such high-stakes negotiations.
That was Mihal Bardvet reporting. In North America, trade tensions from tariffs have disrupted many manufacturing sectors, including the global automobile industry. But industry experts say that so far this year, sales of Chinese vehicles remains strong. Demand for Chinese autos has been growing in many developing nations, including Mexico. Frank Contreras reports from Mexico City.
Mexicans seeking to purchase new vehicles this year have many choices of brands and available technology. The country is located near the massive U.S. market and always ranks among the top 10 vehicle manufacturers in the world. Among global automakers, this Latin American giant is considered a sophisticated and highly competitive market. Since 2020, Chinese automakers have increased their presence in Mexico, and Chinese-made vehicles have been on the rise here. President of BYD Mexico, Ray Zhu, sees significant opportunities for increasing sales in Mexico. He says this is true for light vehicles using combustion engines and fully electric pickup trucks.
Based on the data, I think in Mexico every year there are about between 15% of 18% of the new cars sold are pickup, which means annually it has the potential to have more than 200,000 units pickup. So this is a big, huge market.
For more than 15 years, Mexico has charged a 20% tariff on all vehicles imported into the country. But that has not deterred the rising demand. Sales of Chinese vehicles in Mexico have been on the rise in recent years, and they now account for 12% of total market sales in this country. The president of Mexico's National Association of Automotive Distributors, Guillermo Rosales, says Chinese vehicles are popular in Mexico because they offer good prices and attractive new technologies.
The average price for a new car in Mexico is around $27,000. Products made in China fall into this price range nicely. This gives Chinese vehicles a strong acceptance here. 1 out of every 5 cars sold in Mexico are made in China.
Rosales expects no major drop this year in Chinese vehicle sales in Mexico.
Sometimes there is a deficiency in available parts. It's important that they listen to consumers and distributors alike.
But trade tensions, due in great part to tariff impositions, are expected to slow economic growth in Mexico. Some automotive industry experts here say that will likely also slow Mexican demand for Chinese-made vehicles in 2026.
That was Frank Contreras reporting. Finally, on China's diplomacy, Chinese President Xi Jinping has called on Colombia to take its formal accession to the Belt and Road Initiative as an opportunity to upgrade bilateral cooperation. President Xi was speaking when meeting his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro, who's in Beijing for a ministerial meeting of the forum between China and the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. The Chinese president called for the expansion of bilateral cooperation into wider areas, including wind energy, new energy vehicles, and the digital economy.
2025 marks the 45th anniversary of our two countries' diplomatic relations. From this new historical starting point, China is willing to deepen ties with Colombia to benefit our peoples.
President Petro said Colombia will work closely with China in safeguarding international fairness and justice and protecting the common interests of developing countries. After their meeting, the two heads of state witnessed the signing of a joint cooperation plan on the Belt and Road Initiative. President Xi has also met his Chilean counterpart Gabriel Boric and called on the two sides to build a role model of South-South cooperation. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says the partnership between China and Latin America rejects bloc confrontation and champions openness and mutual benefit. He made the remarks while presiding over the 4th ministerial meeting of the China-CELAC Forum in Beijing. Dai Kai has more.
Marking the 10th anniversary of its official launch, the China-CELAC Forum has sent a message of unity and cooperation. Officials from countries under the forum's framework have gathered in Beijing to discuss shared development goals and work toward building a China-Latin America community with a shared future. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said the past decade has seen frequent high-level exchanges, building a strong consensus on unity and development. He said this has guided relations into a new phase defined by equality, mutual benefit, innovation, and openness while delivering tangible benefits to the people.
Over the past decade, the Forum has grown into a mature mechanism. It's now a vital platform for equal dialogue and mutually beneficial cooperation between China and Latin America. It has added new meaning to our comprehensive cooperative partnership and injected fresh momentum into building a community with a shared future.
Speaking about strengthening solidarity between China and Latin America, Wang said the two sides will firmly support each other's core interests, deepen economic cooperation, promote peace and security, and continue to enhance cultural exchanges and mutual learning, while jointly defending international fairness and justice. He said the two sides have set a new example for global relations and have driven greater collaboration across the global south.
I'm very optimistic and excited. Based on what I've heard, it shows the cooperation of all the member countries that we intend to strengthen our bilateral arrangements with China. And I think that with all the trade wars and the tariff wars that we're seeing, this is extremely important for all the countries of the meeting here today.
It's very important as we recognize China. When we say we talk about the 33 countries that are here. We recognize China like a serious partner in which we can work together, very concrete.
The meeting witnessed the adoption of two key documents, the Beijing Declaration reaffirming both sides' commitment to peace, development, and cooperation, and a joint action plan outlining specific initiatives in areas such as technology, trade, investment, infrastructure, and Belt and Road cooperation.
The forum is the first multilateral platform to bring together China and countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Attending officials believe this meeting represents a significant milestone in their cooperation as they continue to seek common goals in their development moving forward.
That was Dai Kai reporting. Recapping today's headlines, US President Donald Trump is on a 3-nation visit to the Middle East, the first major overseas tour of his second term. Reports indicate that Israel targeted Hamas leader Mohammad Sinwar in a strike. And China and Colombia have signed a cooperation plan on the Belt and Road Initiative following a meeting between President Xi Jinping and President Gustavo Petro in Beijing. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Tianlu. Thank you for listening.